Behind me is my 2013 Audi Q5 3.0T. It's currently sitting just over 70,000 miles, and so I thought it'd be good to put together a video sharing a little bit about the reliability and durability of the vehicle so far since it was new. Now, I'm the second owner of the vehicle. I bought it at about 60,000 miles, and I've since put just over 10,000 miles on the car. I've got all the original service records from the first owner on the car, and then I have, just over 10,000 miles of experience myself with the vehicle. Now, I've owned quite a few Audis in the past. The highest mileage Audi that I had was a 2003 Audi A4 with the 3-liter V6, and I got to 165,000 miles before I decided to get rid of the vehicle. Now, at that point, I was beginning to have some fairly expensive repairs on the car, although I would say that in general it was fairly reliable. The main issue being that when things went wrong, they were very expensive. Now, on the Q5, given that Audis have a reputation for being very expensive to repair and having reliability issues, I wanted to share a little information on that. Since we're getting close to 100,000 miles, go over some of the things that the original owner saw, some things that I've had on the vehicle, and then just give you a general overview of the durability of the vehicle. Now, one of the things that I think is the best about an Audi is, even though they sometimes get a bad rap for having mechanical issues at high mileage, the fit and finish and just the quality of the materials used on the vehicle are top grade. Now, unfortunately, the car is not real clean right at the moment, but what I want to start off by saying is that the paint quality on the Q5 is outstanding. I've got a 2016 Tacoma that's also black, and that car, every time that I even brush against it with something, it leaves a scratch. The Q5 has really great quality paint, and being a dark color that really shows all the scratches, it's held up really well to minor brushing up against the vehicle with items, or taking on a gravel road or something and brushing against some bushes or plants or whatever, driving in the winter and having cinders on the road. The paint's really held up very well, and so I've been really impressed with that. There's no fading, there's no flaking, just some minor scratches, but nothing that's too major. And that really is just starting on the surface of the vehicle. That's what you're going to find throughout the car. So on the exterior of the vehicle, everything is held up very well. Audis have superior fit and finish quality and just materials. You look inside this vehicle and you would have no idea that this car has got almost 71,000 miles. So looking in here, it really looks like a brand new vehicle. And obviously part of that is having an owner that's taking really good care of it. But I also want to point out at the same time that I use this car for its intended purpose. We drive it to the mountains skiing on a regular basis. We take it, off on gravel roads to get to trails, or to go on hikes or whatever. And so it's not that this car has just been babied. You can even see there's a car seat in the back, and so we've got an infant, so she hasn't had an opportunity to make too much of a mess of the vehicle. But things have held up very well. And I didn't clean the car for this video or do anything to recondition or refinish it. This is just how it looks on a regular basis. And so it's held up really well. You just look at all of the details of the vehicle, and everything about it has just held up really nicely. Now, likewise, being over 70,000 miles, you might expect that there'd be some things on the vehicle that don't work at this point in its life, and that's not the case. All of the electronics in the vehicle work flawlessly. All of the lights, the computer system on the vehicle works perfectly. Heated seats work, the drive select works. Every single thing on the vehicle still works well. Now, we've had one issue with the vehicle since we bought it. Now, up here on the visor, there's a little clip here that should connect to this attachment. That guy snapped off. So, my wife snapped off one of these visors, and I assumed that she was being careless. I've never had one of these clips in a car snap off. She snapped it off. I kind of assumed that it was her carelessness. that broke it. Kind of gave her a hard time. And then I snapped off the other side. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that is one weak point on the Q5. Now the previous owner did get to 60,000 miles without snapping either of those, unless they got something repaired at some point. My wife and I, on the other hand, in our 10,000 miles of ownership, managed to snap off both of those. So that's my one gripe as far as fit and finish quality inside the vehicle. So as I mentioned, the vehicle's got no issues as far as the exterior quality, interior quality. Everything's really holding up well, other than those little visor clips. Jumping mechanically on the vehicle, as far as the powertrain, engine, transmission, everything works completely flawlessly in that capacity too. And not only does it work completely flawlessly, but it still really drives like a brand new vehicle. It's amazing. You know, sometimes as cars get older, they lose a little bit of the performance. The good handling might diminish at some level. You might get a little play in the steering. And on the Q5, that's not the case. It really, you know, from the all-wheel drive to the engine to the transmission, the handling, acceleration, the vehicle drives like it did the day that it first came off the lot. It seriously drives like a brand new car. Along with that, it's completely quiet. There's no strange noises that have developed. The suspension, you know, is still completely silent. The ride quality is still good. When you accelerate, it still has a really nice tone to it. There's no weird clicking or you know, anything that would be unexpected on the vehicle. So as far as the mechanics on the vehicle, it's completely flawless, which really means overall the car is completely flawless at 70,000 miles, from mechanics to the materials and just everything about it. If you cleaned it up really good and you could turn back the odometer, there's no reason someone wouldn't believe that it's a brand new vehicle. Now, I did mention when I first started the video that I was going to go over some of the issues that the vehicle has had since it was new. So even though it's currently flawless, there have been some things that have occurred since the vehicle first came off the lot. Now, for starters, since I've owned the vehicle, again at about 60,000 miles, now sitting just over 70, in those 10,000 miles, I haven't had a single issue. All that we've done to the car is basic maintenance. And so we've done oil changes, replaced the wiper blades, we bought a set of snow tires, and that's really it. So all maintenance, we haven't had any repairs or reliability issues with it. And so, yeah, it's been a perfect car for those 10,000 miles. Now, the previous owner did take the vehicle into the dealership quite a few times. They always took it to the Audi dealership, and so we have complete records of the history on the vehicle. And they did have some issues with it. But I want to just put in a disclaimer that I think that they were a very particular car owner, and they took it in anytime that they heard or saw or felt anything that was at all unusual. Now, the thing that was the most concerning to me when I bought the vehicle is that they took it into the dealer, it was either 2 or 3 times because of issues with the steering shaft on the car. So this vehicle has the drive select option where you can press a button and it'll change between vehicle modes. So you've got a comfort mode where the steering is going to be a little looser, there's going to be a little more play, the suspension's going to be a little softer, and the vehicle's not going to accelerate quite as aggressive as it would in the dynamic mode. In the dynamic mode, the vehicle accelerates quite a bit faster, keeps the revolutions of the engine at a higher rate, and shifts quicker, or sorry, shifts slower, lets the RPMs get a little higher before it shifts. Along with that, the suspension's a little stiffer, the steering's a little stiffer. There's also an individual mode where you can choose the settings that you prefer. So perhaps, like in my case, I like a stiff suspension, stiff steering, but I don't necessarily need that ability to accelerate really fast on a regular basis. It still accelerates plenty quick in just the standard mode. And so I'll set my settings where I have that stiff suspension, stiff steering, and then the acceleration I put it in just the comfort mode. There's also an auto mode where the car will kind of adapt to your driving style. So if you're driving really aggressively, it's going to kind of transition into that dynamic mode, and then at the same time, if you're on the highway just kind of cruising, it's going to transition back to that comfort mode. And so you've got a few settings there. Now with those settings, the ability of the steering to be able to adjust and go from a little more firm to a little more soft steering, kind of a complex system. And anyway, it sounded like they ran into some issues with the steering shaft, and it was replaced either once or twice under warranty. I have not noticed any issues with it since I've owned it, as far as what was described previously. So they said there was quite a bit of noise, kind of a screeching noise that was coming from the steering shaft. Again, I haven't had any issues with that during the time that I've owned it. There have been a few times where I kind of felt like, it sort of feels weird. Like I'll sort of move the steering wheel and there's like a little play in it when I'm in, more dynamic mode, and just doesn't feel quite right. But I think that's really just the characteristic of the steering on this vehicle. It's that transition that we're kind of making throughout the auto industry of going from hydraulic steering to electronic steering, and you just don't get that same feel that you do with hydraulic steering. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of electric steering, but it's kind of the wave of the future, and it seems like that's where we're going. And so I think that the Audi system could use some work, but it's pretty good overall. So anyway, that was kind of the main issue that the previous owner had. Every other item that they took it into the dealership for, it was like, oh, I hear a rattle in the back passenger corner of the car. Oh, I hear a rattle in the the visor, driver's side visor. Or, oh, I hear something that's in the back of the vehicle. It was just kind of one thing after another where they were bringing it into the dealer because they heard some little rattle and were concerned about it. Like I said, I have not had any issues with the vehicle. I actually had a 2009 A4 where I had a rattle that was coming right up from the console above the windshield here, that drove me crazy. And typically I'm very sensitive to rattles. I have not had a single complaint with the Q5 in that area, and I would be the one that would notice it if that was an issue. I kind of am one of those picky drivers or car owners where if I bought a brand new Audi that was expensive and I heard a rattle, I'd probably bring it in too. So that's basically an overview of the issues with this Audi at 70,000 miles. I think that was really the reason that I, having owned an Audi with 165,000 miles in the past, and experiencing the cost of high repairs with the Audi, and then going to some other brands to try to get away from that. I owned a Subaru for a while, I had a Lexus, and kind of wanted to get away from that high cost of repair. And what I really found was that Audis can't be matched as far as just the quality of the vehicle with regard to fit and finish and just the materials. And so I decided, you know what, if the engine dies on this car, the transmission dies on this car at 150,000 miles or 200,000 miles, it's a car that's worth putting an engine back into, because it's still going to feel like a new car at that point. This vehicle's got 70,000 miles on it and it still feels brand new. It actually even has a new car smell at the same time. It never seemed to have gone away. And so anyway, I guess my point is that I feel like it's a car that's worth putting money into repairing and keeping running, because everything else about the car holds up really well, regardless of whether it has mechanical issues in the future. Now, I do want to point out that, interestingly enough, in the latest version of Consumer Reports, the SUV with the highest rating for reliability, or just actually it was the overall rating, the highest recommendation from Consumer Reports for a new SUV was the Audi Q7. And Audi has actually moved into the list of one of the top automakers in the industry for reliability. So I'm really curious to see if that if they're able to keep it up and hold that spot. Audi doesn't have a reputation going back in the past for that reliability, and I think that they've been able to maintain a loyal following just because of the quality of their vehicles. So it's going to be interesting to see if that, you know, reliability holds true and it becomes a very reliable brand on top of everything that it already is. I think that Audi's going to be unstoppable in the auto industry. So anyway, that's an overview of my experience with the Q5 sitting at 70,000 miles. I will keep you updated as that mileage goes up. Subscribe to my channel for additional material on the Audi Q5 and to see how the Q5 is running further along down the road. If you've got any questions or comments about this video, leave them in the comments below and I'd be happy to add my input. So until next time, take care.